Hello beautiful and welcome back to my channel and welcome to a video that I have been talking about all summer and we're finally here. We are doing the Battle of the Rainbow palettes. I have 15. I was going to show you with my fingers, but like I have more rainbow palettes than I have fingers. I would literally have to pull in a foot as well. So let's not, I'm saving that for my future OnlyFans when everything else goes south. I'm saving that for my future OnlyFans, but I have 15 rainbow palettes. I'm gonna show you swatches of all of these. I'm gonna let you know my thoughts on all of these, and hopefully this video will be a little bit helpful in maybe finding the perfect rainbow palette for you. If you have not been here before, first of all, I would consider subscribing. I am all about colorful, bright, dramatic makeup. I also love other kinds of makeup as well. I'm actually wearing the new Nomad Cosmetics palette today. This video is already live on my channel, but I thought since I really liked how this look was looking, I thought I'd sit down and finally film this Battle of the Rainbow palettes. It's taken me quite some time to get through all of these, form my opinions, of course, on all of these, and also to swatch all of these because B-roll takes forever. B-roll takes forever, but we are gonna dig into these, and I think I'm gonna start somewhat, I don't know if I'm 100%, I'm like, this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna start with smallest, going into biggest, but if I have more than one from a brand, I'm gonna take them together. So I'm gonna lump them up like brand wise as well. In the description box, I will link all of these palettes together with where you can find them in the order that I mentioned them in the video, in case you're wondering which was which. Some of these I've gotten in PR, some of these I bought myself. I will put a little star behind the palettes that I've gotten in PR, and I will also leave affiliate codes if I have any affiliate codes with any of these brands, with any of these palettes, which means you can save a little bit of money and I will earn a small commission in case you decide to purchase from any of these brands. But this is not a shop with me QVC video. This is a showing different rainbow palettes so that you can figure out, in case you were looking for the perfect rainbow palette, which one might be for you. So there are no particular order to these palettes, and I also wanted to let you know that I think I like all of these palettes. I'm gonna be honest, most of them have survived at least one declutter. I like these palettes. If there is a palette here that, is there a palette? No, I don't think there's a palette here that I don't like, but I will of course let you know which ones are my absolute favorites. I also think that I didn't include a couple that have been discontinued, and I also do know that I have decluttered a couple of rainbow palettes throughout my time on YouTube. I do a yearly declutter each year. Let's start with the Ace Beauté Slice of Paradise palette. This is the perfect palette if you wanted a rainbow palette but you wanted a smaller one, because rainbow palettes have a tendency of becoming really big, really enlarged, and this one is smaller and a little bit more compact, and there is only two shimmers. So if you were liking something that is a little bit more matte heavy, this could also be for you. But you have like yellow, orange, red, there's also a peach here, there's a pink, a purple, there's a darker purple. Like there is a couple of different options. You definitely have the full rainbow here, and maybe I should have mentioned that in the beginning as well. All of these are rainbows in the sense that they include the rainbow color. So I especially am looking for palettes that have green, blue, purple, like the yellow, orange, and red. Sometimes they include a pink, sometimes they have pink instead of red. At least a basic element of a rainbow needs to be here, and with some of them I have stretched a little bit, and I will explain that. But I think this is a pretty decent, I don't want to say basic, but it is like a rainbow palette in its essence. And Ace Beauté has one of my absolute favorite matte formulas. So if you're looking for a small but mighty matte heavy palette in a rainbow category, this definitely could be for you. If you're more into the shimmers than the mattes, then this one from GlossGods might be for you. This is the What's Your Power palette, and this one is, it's a half matte, half shimmer, but the mattes are very pastel leaning. So I don't necessarily think that you will get any kind of depth or definition with these. For me, all of these are more lid shades or inner corner shades, or if you want to blend out any of these shimmers just with something at the edge to just blur it out a little bit. On me, all of these are more white based pastels. The shimmers are incredible. incredible though. Most of them have some kind of a duochrome shift to them. They're so incredible. So if you're looking for a rainbow palette that is a little bit more heavy on the shimmers, or at least where the shimmers are the ones who shine, and you might not want to use it like as a standalone palette, more as an accent palette, I definitely think that this could be a really good alternative. Here we have a palette that it's a little smaller, but there's a lot of shades in this one. And this is the Lunar Beauty Life's a Drag Facelift. So this is the newly released one. He had an older one, and then he re-released the palette with smaller pans and with more pans. This is the one for you if you are more into neutrals than you are into rainbows, but you really would like to add a rainbow palette to your collection, because this palette has all of it. And I think that a rainbow palette, if you love neutrals, adding a rainbow palette to your collection can be a really good idea to just mix and match. Because if you mix this one together with the yellow and the orange, you're gonna get a beautiful look, but it's still gonna lean a little neutral. So sometimes mixing a rainbow palette with the neutral palette makes so much sense. And this is also a really good quality palette, and it's also very matte heavy. And I like that there is a black and that there is a white in here. So this could be a good palette if you are more into neutrals than you are rainbow palette, but you would still like to have the rainbow element and have it all in one. Let's get into one of the more, if not the most affordable one, and this is the something Tokyo. Trendy in Tokyo. It's called Trendy in Tokyo, and it is from BH Cosmetics, and this one is available again. And this is, again, it's more of a traditional rainbow palette, but it only has one red, but there's a couple of pinks, and for a lot of people, pinks can be easier to work with, easier to wear. A lot of people feel a little bit afraid for reds, so for that reason, I think it's smarter to include more pinks. I will say this is not my best quality rainbow palette in my collection, but it's always nice to be able to just recommend something that's at the drugstore. BH Cosmetics has, I don't know now because they haven't really released any eyeshadow palettes since they got bought by Makeup Revolution, but I feel like BH Cosmetics has two different formulas, one that is good and one that is absolutely amazing. This is the good formula. There's nothing wrong with this palette. It is a traditional shimmer and a pretty decent matte formula. You can definitely create looks with this. This is definitely a good palette, but if I were to say what is your favorite rainbow palette, this wouldn't be it. But if you're balling on a budget and you just want to get a rainbow palette to introduce some colors to your collection, but you want to spend as little money as possible, this is definitely a good option. Another good option, now we're getting into some that are a little bigger, that is of course costing a little bit more because it is bigger, and this one is from Colourpop. This is the Fade Into Hue, but it is from Colourpop, so it is a little bit more affordable and it has a lot more options. I will say I have used this palette quite some different times, of course, sometimes doing a whole look, sometimes just grabbing a color. I don't think that all of these colors are the most excellent formula that Colourpop has ever done, but same here. If you wanted to just introduce some colors into your collection and you just not balling on a budget, but like you don't want to spend a lot of money, this is a great alternative. There's a lot of different formulas in here. The thing that I don't like is there are 3 pressed glitters in here. I don't personally use that, but I know that there's a lot of other people out there that does that. Maybe there's even 4 pressed glitters. This one might be one as well. Yeah, there might actually be 4 pressed glitters. What I do like about this palette is that there is so many different formulas in here. So this is the perfect palette if you want to do like a neutral crease and you want to pop something and you're in the corner, on your lower lash line or on your lid. This is a great palette because there are light ones, dark ones, sparkly ones, matte ones. There are different kind of formulas in here so that you can play around a little bit. And a palette like this can be a great, I wouldn't say gateway drug, that's not what I meant, but like a great way for you to figure out what do you like when it comes to colors, because there are so many colors and so many different formulas. Okay, this is one of my favorite like rainbow palettes. Now we're getting into one that, like, if you asked me, I did a top 3 palettes in every category. And one of the categories was rainbow palettes. And I did mention this one because this is one of my favorite rainbow palettes. And this is the Nomad Cosmetics, the Monteverde Cloud Forest palette. I love this palette because this palette is something that I like. Again, as someone who owns a lot of colorful makeup, as someone who has a lot of colorful makeup, I even think that there is one palette here that's not here. Like, there is one palette that I should mention that's not even here. Let me go get that one. So there's more than 15 palettes. I was lying in the beginning. there's more than 15 palettes. This one is a monochromatic green palette with a neon rainbow palette, which is something that for me is just absolutely genius, because you're getting the pops of like neons in here, and then you're getting the green like palette as well, so you can go in so many different directions. And I love how poppy and pigmented and fun these like almost neon mattes are. It's just such a fun and innovative way, same as the Lunar Beauty Lives of Drag palette. It's just an innovative way of doing a rainbow palette, because you're getting almost like a 2-for-1 deal, and I just really enjoyed this palette. It's a favorite. There's another palette that would be a favorite had it not been discontinued. And remember how I said that I was not going to mention any palettes that were discontinued? I'm making an exception for this one because the owner of Unearthly Cosmetics, and this is the Vitality palette, has said that this palette is coming back, but she's making a couple of tweaks to it, and I don't know exactly what those tweaks are gonna be, but I wanted to let you know that this is a favorite of mine. But it's discontinued right now, but it is an absolutely beautiful palette. The mattes are beautiful, the shimmers are beautifully like thin, but thin in a good way. So they're not chunky, they're like just smooth, duochromy, high shine beautifulness. And there's like a little bit of a twist to this one because you get different undertones. You have the purples, you have like cool tone greens, warm tone greens, the yellow, and then the yellow duochrome here that's just so much fun. There is not a red in this one, but instead you're getting a couple of pinks here. But honestly, I'll forgive them because I really enjoyed this palette. I think it's absolutely beautiful. Now I need to go and fetch those palettes that I forgot about. Oopsie. Okay, crisis averted. I was able to find the palettes, and this is another one of the palettes that is my favorite rainbow palette. So it wasn't 15, it was 17. Is it? Can I count? 17-ish. This is the Solmåne 2 palette by Oden's Eye, and this is again more of a rainbow palette with a little bit of a twist, and this doesn't have any red, forgive me, but it does go from like oranges to like a coppery red-ish, blue, purple, a little bit of a tealy green. Is this a typical rainbow palette? No, but I still would call this a rainbow palette-esque. Not only does Oden's Eye have some of my absolute favorite formulas in the industry, I love their shimmers, I love the mattes, they just really fit my aesthetic, how I like to do my makeup. I just think their palettes are absolutely stunning, and also their packaging beautiful. But this is a rainbow palette that is not like desaturated in the way that it's like gray, but it's just a little bit more jewel tone. It's not like crayon colors. There's something sophisticated about the color stories and the things that you can get out of this one. And because it is not the typical crayon colors, it also mixes so well together with neutrals, especially like neutral neutrals or cool tone neutrals. I just think that this palette is so beautiful. I had so much fun with this palette, and this was also one of my favorite rainbow palettes. This is a palette that I didn't think I was gonna like, and it survived a couple of declutters, and I don't know if it's gonna survive the next one because you can see how many rainbow palettes I have, but I still think that the Margarita palette from Glamlite is a beautiful palette, and I actually have 3 rainbow palettes from Glamlite here, and with that being said, they have even more. Glamlite, together with another brand that I also have more than one rainbow palette from, they're having this almost like rainbow identity crisis where they sometimes put out so many large palettes that they all end up being rainbows. But this one is a smaller one, and this is the Margarita palette, and this is just such a fun summer palette. The thing that for me is lacking with this palette, which is just a minor thing that is so easy to fix, is that this one does not have a deepening up shade for me. But if you just give me a dark brown or a black, that is fixed. Crisis averted. I also really like that there's almost like they're leaning a little neutral on this side and almost a little, I don't know, like a pool cocktail party. Who am I? There's something so summery about this, and the shimmers are just so beautiful. And this color story, again, there's a little bit of a tweak that's been made to this rainbow because it's not a typical rainbow, but yet the elements are here. And I just think that the undertones of these shadows are just really, really beautiful. Another rainbow palette, also from Glamlite, a little bit newer, is the Scooby-Doo palette. This one has that kind of a packaging that does like the same as the Nomad palette that I just showed you. So this one is on the larger side, and this one is, oh my god, really heavy. And it is on the larger side, and it's also on the larger side without having as many shadows in here. And this is not one of my favorite palettes from Glamlite because of that, because the packaging is a little bulky, and the color story, even though it is a rainbow palette with a twist, I do wish that this one was offering a little bit more lighter shades. Although I think that this one, together with the palette that I just showed, the Margarita palette, would probably be a match made in heaven, honestly, now that I think of it. Now I'm like looking at that Margarita palette again, I'm like, that would be such a good companion palette to a lot of colorful palettes, especially a lot of like Glamlite palettes, if I'm gonna be honest. But there are some more crayon colors in this palette, but there's also some muted, almost grungy colors in here. What I've done with this palette, I've really enjoyed. It's just not my absolute favorite rainbow palette from Glamlite. I would say, and this is just me, I would recommend the Rick and Morty palette instead. I think this palette is beautiful. I love the colors in here. And I think that with this color story, this is a big rainbow palette, but you can see here, they're almost the same size, but there are so many more colors in the Rick and Morty palette, and it just has a really nice gradient. It has, again, this is a rainbow palette. It's a little bit of a twist because technically this is the only yellowish. There's no red, but there are 2 oranges and then some pinks. We're tweaking it a little bit, but there's also some dark black, gray, sooty, almost rainbow colors. And then we have some lighter colors, and some of the shimmers are duochrome. These are very sparkly shimmers. There's some really intense fun greens here. One that is very intense but cool tone, and one that is very intense but warm tone. I just feel like this is a fun mix of dark, light, grungy, poppy, cool tone, warm tone. I really think they did a good mix in this palette in a way that, I'm gonna be honest, I don't always think that Glamlite nails that. I feel like sometimes Glamlite palettes is lacking differentiation between the different tones in the palette. Sometimes they are missing contrast, like it's either all dark or all mid-tone, but this one I really feel has it all. And I think this is a very nice, well-rounded rainbow palette if you want to have something that's bright and fun, but not the traditional crayon colors, just a little bit of a twist to it. And also, like, the shimmers are just so beautiful and dimensional and just interesting. Now we're getting into another brand that has also had a little bit of a rainbow identity crisis, and that is Blend Bunny Cosmetics. I am only going to be showing you 2 of the, is it 3 rainbow palettes in a row that I think she released, because the Primal palette is discontinued. I don't think it's available anymore. There might be some left on the site, but I know that she discontinued it and she sold it out on a discount, so I think that that one is gone. If she ever finds any in the back and puts them on the site, I can tell you right now, it's a beautiful quality palette, but it makes sense why she discontinued it, because there were just one too many rainbow palettes in her collection. This is the first one that she came out with. This is the Blends palette, and this is a classic rainbow palette, but just flushed out, because there is the green. This is not a true yellow though, I will say, but bear with me. The green, the yellow, the orange, the red, the purple, the indigo, the blue, like there are all the elements plus a row of neutrals, and then she flushed out the colors. A darker one, a lighter one, a more muted one, a pastel one, there are some teals, there are some pinks. It's a rainbow palette that is the traditional crayon original rainbow palette, but just really flushed out in a very, very cohesive and user-friendly way. If you were looking for just a rainbow palette, all mattes, to take you into any direction, I really do think that you would like this one. If you were looking for a rainbow palette that's a little bit more different, that has a little bit of a twist to it, and again, this is one of my favorite rainbow palettes. This is the Surge palette, and is this my favorite Blend Bunny palette? It might still be. Mine has had a little bit of a tumble, so one of the shades is a little bit broken, but this is a rainbow palette. It has all the elements, one row of each: green, blue, purple, pinky red, orangey red, and then the yellow with some neutrals. It has all the elements, but just dialed up in a way that makes it very interesting and very different. Neons, metallics, grungy, almost black colors, but all of these are definitely different, and you can definitely see it in real life. mid-toned, almost grungy colors, and then muted pastels. If you own a lot of colorful palettes, maybe you already own a rainbow palette and you would like to add another one to your collection, but you want to make sure that you're not adding a rainbow palette that's too similar to the other one you have, I would say that any of the one that I mentioned as favorites, the Cloud Forest palette, the Surge palette, or the Solmåne 2 palette by Oden, any three of those definitely would give you something different, because they're not typical rainbow palettes, and this is just really, really nice quality as well. All over, Blend Bunny just makes amazing eyeshadows. I also have from Juvia's Place the Culture 1 and the Culture 2. These are really nice because they're available at the drugstore. You can buy these at Ulta. So at the drugstore option at Ulta, you can also order them from Juvia's Place. I do have a code with Juvia's Place. So if you're ordering from the Juvia's Place website, make sure to use a code so you can get some money off. So this is the Culture 1. These are big. Like, these are really, really big palettes. But these are rainbow palettes, but they have very interesting shimmers. Duochromes. I even think that one of them might have a multichrome. This one has a glitter that I don't love, but they also go from really dark to really light. This light green shimmer here is just absolutely stunning, and there is a little bit of a neutral corner going on as well. I just think that they did a, again, flushed out rainbow palette that has all the elements, that goes from light to dark. Maybe this one doesn't go as dark as maybe it could, especially a dark brown would probably help this palette a lot, but there's also some really nice different shimmer options in here. And then you have Culture 2, which is, let's be honest, also a rainbow palette, but just different tones. And like, this one is really nice and bright and light, and this one is really nice and bright and light. And then you have some different dark options, and same here. You have the red, the yellow, the green, the blue, those kind of elements in here, but this definitely has a little bit almost like an earthy twist to it. It is bright, it is fun, it is colorful, and there is a lot of variation. This one does not have any pressed glitters, but it is also not a typical rainbow palette. So if you're looking for a typical rainbow palette, maybe this or the Culture 1 isn't for you. But if you're just looking for a really fun, colorful palette with lots of options and really, really, really nice shimmers at an affordable price that has the elements of a rainbow palette, I think you would like these. Okay, let's mention this is an all matte palette, and this is the Best Mattes, and this is the collaboration that Bella Beauté Bar did with Ellie, Starr, and Brittney Huffman. These are magnetized so that you can, I have not moved mine at all, but you can move these around, and you can move them around in any way you want, or you can put them in your own palettes, or these are the traditional sized pan. I don't know, are they 26 millimeters? I'm not 100% sure. So you can pop in other shimmers here as well if you would like to. But this one, again, it has all the elements of a rainbow palette. It also has some neutrals in here. It goes from really light, different pastels to really dark colors. There's brights, there is almost like more neons, there's pastels, there's grungy colors. There are some groups that are more represented than others, like there's a lot of blues and greens, but there is some purple, reds, yellow, orange, maybe not as prevalent as the green leaning into teal and blue corner, but there definitely is a rainbow element in here. And if you just wanted mattes and you wanted a lot of them and you want a really, really good matte formula, because Bella Beauté Bar has a beautiful formula, and you wanted to be able to move them around so that you can create your own little color stories, or that you can move them into other palettes, I definitely think that this will be an amazing addition of just really good mattes in all kinds of different colors. Some of them are more crayon colors, some of them have more interesting undertones, but just to really maybe flush out your collection if you're just looking for a lot of mattes in different depths and different colors. Last one, we're getting into probably the biggest one, but also one of the more affordable options. And this is the rainbow palette that I added the last to my collection. This is the Bright 2.0 by the Beauty Babe brand. And when I asked on my Instagram, I basically asked you, what is your favorite rainbow palette? Because I wanted to make sure that I was not missing a favorite of yours, that I did not miss a palette that everyone was agreeing was a favorite. And all the palettes that you mentioned, or at least all of the palette that got mentioned more than once, let me put it like that, because there was some palettes that I didn't own that only got mentioned once. I wouldn't say that that's like a favorite if it's like just a favorite of one person, but the only palette that got mentioned quite a bunch of times that I didn't own was this big palette by Beauty. So I decided to pick it up, and let me tell you, this is a big boy. This one has definitely the full range of the rainbow. I mean, you can see it: red, purple, blue, green, red, like going to the oranges and the yellows, and there also is some neutrals, and there also is some pinkies, and it has a really nice depth. It doesn't have any pastels, so I wouldn't accept this maybe pastel yellow here, and of course you can mix it with white and you can create pastels. The width of the darkness versus light is not as wide as it is in the Blend Bunny palette. Maybe that is what I wanted to say. If you just want to have a bunch of different colors that are bright with a lot of different like variations, because there is like this one that has a little bit more pink, this one that has a little bit more like purple in it, but you're not necessarily looking for that range of going from pastels to almost black, this one will be a great option. Good quality, affordable, bunch of shades. But if you're looking for that gradient that goes from a really light in one color to really dark in one color, I will definitely recommend you to check out Blend Bunny instead, because Blend Bunny does have an amazing range in like the depth of the shadows that she will offer in a specific color group. So it just depends on what you're looking for. But if you want to get bang for your buck, a big palette with lots of different options, definitely this one. As I am filming this, I have used this 3 different times, and I do think that from what I have used, I feel like this is very comparable to the Beauty formula that I know and actually really enjoy. So I do think that this is a similar quality. All of the other palettes I have swatched. This is the only one. You can see that some of the shades are actually untouched. I haven't swatched this one yet, but the ones that I've used have been really nice. And I will say, I do know the Beauty formulas. I do know what I'm getting, but I'm not looking forward to having swatched all of these. And I'm probably gonna have to swatch it into different sets. You've already seen how I sorted this out, but yeah, that is the newest one to my collection, so that is probably the one that I know the least, but I still feel like it's very comparable to the other Beauty formulas that I've tried before. So if you were balling on a budget and you wanted to order some, this is from Beauty as well, it's a UK based online retailer, you can get like a really big palette for a more affordable price. It is not the best formula out there, but it's definitely a great way to start if you just want to add as many shades as possible to your collection for as little money as possible, if that makes sense. I hope that this video was helpful. Please let me know, did I actually miss your favorite? Is there a favorite rainbow palette out there that I didn't include here? I would love to hear about it in the comments. Please tell me all about it. Don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you again really soon for a new video. Bye!